Um, Your book says that the Crimean War destroyed the concert of Europe, which was the way of maintaining a balance. Again, if you think I skipped Metternich, I'm just not going to ask about it on a test. We talked about Metternich when I was in school, but we got to leave out something. But Metternich put forth the concert of Europe, and he lived long enough to see the concert shattered. Your book shows a picture of Florence Nightingale taking care of wounded and sick soldiers. Believe it or not, this had not been done before in wars. The sick were just left to more or less fend for themselves. The wounded get around the best they can, and most they die from their wounds. But Florence Nightingale nursed many a soldier back to health who otherwise would have died in previous wars. All right. This takes us up to the unification of Italy and Germany in 1870. Now this is one date I do want you to remember. 1870 is the year that both Germany and Italy were united. Ever since the fall of the Roman Empire, in the year 476, from 476 to 1870, Italy had been a bunch of states. There was the Kingdom of Naples, the Kingdom of Genoa, the Kingdom of Venus, and the Papal States, and Sardinia, and several other kingdoms, and their boundaries and borders would change every few years. In the case of Italy, two men are responsible, were leaders, Cavour and Garibaldi. These men got together and convinced the Italians that they ought to unite, and in 1870 they did. Garibaldi started off in the south and Cavour in the north. And you might think these men might have clashed when they got together, but actually when they got together, Garibaldi said, I'll play a second role and let Cavour have the lead. And because of this, to this day, Garibaldi is looked on as being more of a hero than Cavour was, even though Cavour took the lead, because Garibaldi, yeah.
Sorry, you said Cavour and Garibaldi convinced what?
They what? They pushed forward the unification of Italy with Garibaldi starting at Sicily and working his way from the south up, and Cavour working his way from the north down. And when they met, Garibaldi more or less took a back seat and said, okay, Mr. Cavour, you can lead. The same thing was happening in Latin America, when we'll talk about a little bit, where two men led different factions of the revolution against Spain. When they got together, one of them took a back seat, but they're both on it. Yeah, Garibaldi, as your book mentioned, turned over his conquest to Cavour, and is now looked on forever after as being a hero for his unselfishness. Now, in Germany, the main man around the unification of Germany was Bismarck. Bismarck dreamed of united Germany and worked hard to convince the 100 or so independent German states, the state of Hanover, the state of Brandenburg, and Prussia, to unite. And the most powerful one, of course, was Prussia. So they said that you all should unite under the King of Prussia. And eventually, by doing a whole lot of politicking, a whole lot of maneuvering, a whole lot of even engaging in a few wars, the war with Denmark he was able to, but the big war he engaged in was the war with France, called the Franco-Prussian War. The war occurred in 1870, and the French were overconfident. The French said, every button has been sewed onto every uniform. We're ready for this fight down to the last garter button. everything is in place, and the war was over after one battle. The Prussians outmaneuvered the French, and the French went away terribly humiliated. Napoleon III's government fell to pieces after that, and from that day till this, France has never had a monarch. In fact, the one thing that came out of it was at the end of the Franco-Prussian War, the French finally got their democracy they'd been promised. They'd been promised democracy in 1792, it had failed. They'd been promised one in 1830, that had failed. They'd been promised one in 1832, and especially 1848, it all failed. Every time some dictator or some emperor would take over. But finally in 1870, when France was humiliated by Germany in the Franco-Prussian War, the French finally got their democracy. And Germany was able, with France out of the way, Germany and Italy both actually were able to unite. France would have prevented the union if they could have. But Germany and Italy were both able to unite, and we had a united nation in Germany, a united nation in Italy. Bismarck has been known as the man of blood and iron because he said, and I'll quote, "The issues of the day are not to be decided by speeches and majority votes, but by blood and iron." In other words, you have an issue, go to war. Not that I agree with that in any way, but this was his philosophy. And the result was Germany was destined to fight 2 world wars and lose them both. And maybe they eventually came to realize, hey, maybe it's better off if the issues of the day are decided by speeches and majority votes and not by war. War has a very uncertain outcome to it. You go into it thinking you're going to win, and folk, you don't always win. All right. When you come back in on Tuesday, I'll continue from where I left off with tomorrow's class. When you come back in on Thursday, I'll continue where I left off with tomorrow's class. And I'll do this until I feel like I'm caught up. So make sure, now you're responsible, folks, for just as much as you would have been if we've been in class. You're responsible for the chapter, and that's on the syllabus. And hopefully you will be able to listen to the lectures on chapter 18 that you've missed. Any questions? Okay.
Well, the lecture notes already up.
The lecture notes, yeah, I mentioned, the lecture notes are already up.
On ICAL.
On ICAL, and they're on chapters only from 18, 19, and 20.
What are they exactly? Just, notes,
if you can find your iCollege account, you can't miss them because it's chapters, as it's labeled, chapters 18 to -20.
I didn't see it.
You didn't see it?
Yeah, we didn't see it.
Did anybody see them? Okay, I've got to look for them. I've got to look before I look. But the lectures, as far as chapter 18 lecture videos, they're not up there yet.
Okay. Got it.
But hopefully they will be before the day is out. Okay.